Hello, trading is closed on November 24th, 2015. I had a few calls yesterday. One was I said that we would probably have a gap outside of this range, which we did. I said if the gap were down, it would probably be pretty big, which it was. I said the next most likely scenario was that we would close little change, which also happened. What I didn't predict was this big rally in the middle of the day. We'll come back to that. Early on, MEJT said ultimately lower prices would print, which they did. In the afternoon, it said ultimately lower prices would print, even though there was a buy signal. When you get buys and sells in the same pattern like this, more often than not, you get wishy-washy trading. And that's what happened. We got enough to satisfy the buy. We got enough to satisfy the sell, but just by a small amount. Usually we get more than this minimum, and that means usually lower prices than this will print. And even though it doesn't have to be tomorrow, usually you don't have to wait long. This is actually a pretty negative start to the day. You gap it down, and as the second hour of trading begins, you hit lower lows. That's a pretty negative pattern, a very high percentage of the time. You're going to keep on dropping into the final hour. Obviously, that didn't happen. So that's positive. What's not positive is rallying all day long and not being able to close over the middle of the day high. That's usually negative unless you have a gap over these highs. Because we have conflicting signals, I think it's more likely than not that we have a gap open tomorrow, and it could well take us outside of the range of today's trading pretty early in the day. Were that not to happen, the next most likely thing is that we close little changed. This is the diamond on stilts. This is the first test. The second test usually fails in a large way. Doesn't usually rebound like this, but sometimes when the tests are this close together, it counts as the first test as a unit. That means if we undercut this low again, I think it would be more likely than not to keep on dropping. I still think we're on the wrong side of the Andrews pitchfork, and that it's more likely we're going to see the challenge of the lower tine before we break through the middle tine. We have a break of a trend line here. We came awfully close to this MEJT target without hitting it. Usually when you come this close, it'll print, but it's not required. If we come close, support shouldn't be that strong because we've already challenged it once. If you come close to this price and break through, that support is more likely to hold. Whereas if you come close and then break through later, it's less likely to hold. So I think the most likely scenario for tomorrow is a gap. I think there's a good chance it'll be out of the day's range. If it doesn't happen, I think we'll close little changed. I have lower targets. I don't really have higher targets. I lean towards the gap being down, but that's really a guess more than a prediction. And we'll know more when the market opens tomorrow, and that is today's call.